What's the smallest thing your coach did that changed your life forever? When I was 16, I was the slowest runner on our high school track team, dead last in every race, barely making the minimum times to stay on the team. My teammates called me backup plan because I was only there in case someone got injured. Coach Miller was tough, state champion back in his day, the kind who made you run extra laps for being 30 seconds late. He rarely even spoke to me. One Friday after practice, everyone had left except me. I was still doing my cool-down stretches when coach walked over. "Jackson, you got a minute." My stomach dropped. This was it. He was finally cutting me from the team. "Your form is all wrong," he said, dropping his gym bag. "Has been since day one." I nodded, staring at the ground. I'd heard it all before. "Stand up," he ordered. "Run to that cone and back." I did as told, feeling his eyes analyzing every movement. When I returned, he shook his head. "You're running on your toes. Whole body's tense, like you're afraid of touching the ground." I shrugged. "I've always run like this." He crossed his arms. "Who told you that's how you should run?" "My dad," I admitted. "He said proper runners stay on their toes, light and fast." Coach was quiet for a moment. "Your dad run track?" "No, he just read it somewhere." Coach nodded slowly. "Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., meet me here." I thought about making an excuse. Saturday mornings were for sleeping in. But something in his voice made me agree. The next morning, I dragged myself to the track, half expecting him not to show. But there he was, coffee in hand, looking like he'd been awake for hours. "Take off your shoes," he said. "What? Your shoes? Take 'em off." I thought he was joking, but his face was serious. I unlaced my expensive running shoes my dad had bought me. "Now run, one lap, barefoot." The track felt cold and rough against my feet. I started on my toes like always, but after a few steps, it hurt too much. Naturally, my feet flattened, my stride lengthened, and my whole body relaxed. When I finished, coach was nodding. "See how your body naturally wants to run? That's your real form." That first morning session changed something fundamental in me. Not just my running, but how I understood learning itself. For years, I'd been fighting against my own body, forcing it into an unnatural pattern because someone I trusted had given me wrong information. Coach Miller didn't just correct my form that day. He showed me what it felt like to stop fighting myself. "Your dad means well," coach said as we walked back to the bleachers. "But sometimes the people who love us most give us the worst advice. They want to help, but they don't know what they're talking about." He took a sip of his coffee, steam rising in the cool morning air. "My own father told me I'd never amount to anything in sports because I was too small. Took me years to realize he was just scared of me getting hurt." I thought about that on the drive home. My dad had always been supportive, showing up to every meet even when I came in dead last. He'd researched running techniques online, bought me the best gear, drove me to practices early. But all that love and support had been built on a foundation of bad information. When I got home, Dad was making pancakes in the kitchen. "How was the extra practice?" he asked, flipping one expertly. "Coach working you hard." I hesitated. How do you tell someone who's invested so much in your success that they've been wrong from the beginning? "Dad, can I ask you something about the running form you taught me?" He turned, spatula in hand. "What about it? Where exactly did you read about staying on your toes?" His face lit up. "Oh, this article I found years ago. Something about how sprinters run on the balls of their feet for speed." Made sense to me. Lighter footsteps, faster times, right? And there it was. A misunderstood article about sprinting technique applied to distance running. Years of struggle because of one well-intentioned misinterpretation. "Dad," I said carefully, "I think that might have been about sprinting, not distance running." Coach showed me something different today. The pancake in the pan started smoking. Dad flipped it quickly, but I could see the disappointment in his shoulders. "Oh, well, I guess I just wanted to help." "You did help," I said quickly. "You got me interested in running. You supported me. But maybe coach knows more about the technical stuff." Dad nodded slowly. "Of course he does. I wanted to be part of it, you know? I was never good at sports myself." That conversation stayed with me through the following weeks. Every Saturday morning, I met Coach Miller at the track. He was incredibly patient, breaking down every aspect of my running mechanics. But more than that, he was teaching me to listen to my own body. Feel that. He'd say, after I'd run a particularly smooth 400-meter interval, "That's what efficient feels like. Your body knows how to move. We just have to get your brain out of the way." The improvement wasn't immediate or dramatic. It was gradual, like watching a plant grow. 5 seconds faster one week, then another 3 the next. My teammates started noticing during practice runs. Brad Patterson, our team captain and the guy who'd coined my backup plan nickname, pulled up beside me during a tempo run in the 3rd week. "Yo, Jackson," he huffed, sweat dripping from his chin. "What are you on? You're keeping up with the middle pack now." I almost told him about the Saturday sessions, but something held me back. Maybe it was the way coach had kept it quiet, never mentioning our work to the other coaches, or making a big deal about it. Or maybe I just wasn't ready to share something that felt so personal. "Just working harder, I guess," I said. But Brad wasn't buying it. "Man, I've been working hard for 3 years and I'm not getting faster like that. You doing something different." I shrugged and picked up the pace, leaving him behind for the first time ever. The feeling was incredible. Not just the physical sensation of my legs moving efficiently, but the knowledge that I was finally accessing something that had been inside me all along. At our next meet against our biggest rival, Westfield High, I lined up for the 1600 meters with a confidence I'd never felt before. Usually I'd spend the minutes before a race calculating how far behind I'd finish, hoping I wouldn't get lapped. This time I found myself actually studying the other runners, thinking about race strategy. The gun went off, and I settled into what coach called my sustainable pace. I'd learned not to go out too fast, not to panic when faster runners pulled ahead. For the first 800 meters, I stayed relaxed, focused on my form, heel strike, slight forward lean, arms moving efficiently. As we came through the halfway mark, something unprecedented happened. I was in 5th place out of 8 runners, and I felt good. Not great, not like I could sprint to the finish, but good. Controlled. In the 3rd lap, 2 runners started fading. I passed them both on the inside of turn 3, moving into 3rd place. The crowd was louder than usual, and I could hear my dad's voice above the others. Come on, Jackson. Stay strong. With 400 meters to go, my legs started burning. This was typically where I'd fall apart completely, where the lactic acid would turn my muscles to concrete, and I'd watch helplessly as runner after runner passed me. But coach's voice echoed in my head. The pain is temporary. Your form is permanent. Stay relaxed. I focused on my breathing, on keeping my shoulders loose, on maintaining the rhythm we'd worked on for weeks. The runner in 2nd place was struggling, his form deteriorating with each step. I drew closer. With 200 meters left, I made a decision that would have been unthinkable 6 weeks earlier. I kicked. Not a desperate flailing sprint, but a controlled increase in tempo, the way coach had taught me. I passed the 2nd place runner with 150 meters to go. The crowd was going crazy. I could see my teammates on their feet shouting. Brad was jumping up and down like he'd won the race himself. And there, standing calmly by the finish line with his arms crossed, was Coach Miller. He wasn't cheering or celebrating. He was just watching, nodding slightly. I held on for 2nd place, crossing the line with a time that was 45 seconds faster than my previous best. 45 seconds. In distance running, that's not improvement, that's transformation. After I caught my breath, Coach walked over. How do you feel? Like I could run it again, I said, and meant it. He smiled, the first time I'd ever seen him really smile. That's because you finally ran your race, not someone else's. The bus ride home was surreal. My teammates kept asking me questions, wanting to know my training secrets. Sarah Chen, our distance captain, said she'd never seen someone improve so dramatically. Coach Stevens, our head coach, pulled me aside and asked if I'd been working with a private trainer. Just Coach Miller, I said. He's been helping me with form. Coach Stevens looked surprised. Really? That's interesting. Miller usually doesn't work with individual athletes. That night at dinner, my parents couldn't stop talking about the race. Mom had filmed it on her phone and kept replaying the part where I moved into 2nd place. Dad was quiet at first, but eventually he spoke up. I'm proud of you, son. Not just for the time, but for how you handled everything. I know I gave you some bad advice early on. Dad, you didn't know. No, let me finish. I've been thinking about what you said, about the running form. I went back and found that article. You were right. It was about sprinting. I just wanted so badly to help you succeed that I didn't realize I might be holding you back. He reached across the table and squeezed my shoulder. From now on, I'll stick to being your biggest fan and leave the coaching to the coaches. That conversation meant more to me than the race time. It was the first time my dad had admitted he might not have all the answers, and somehow that made me respect him more, not less. The Saturday morning sessions continued, but they evolved. Coach started incorporating more advanced concepts, race tactics, mental training, nutrition timing. He also started telling me stories about his own running career, the mistakes he'd made, the lessons he'd learned the hard way. You know why I started working with you? He asked one morning as we warmed up together. It was early April, and the track was still damp with dew. Because you saw potential. He laughed. Well, yes, but that's not the whole story. Truth is, you reminded me of myself at your age. Not the physical part. I was always naturally fast. But the mental part. I spent my first 2 years of high school running someone else's race, trying to be the runner my coach wanted instead of the runner I was. We started jogging slowly around the track. My coach back then was old school, believed in one training method for everyone. High mileage, lots of intervals, push through pain. Took me until my junior year to realize that approach was destroying my love for the sport. What changed? I got injured. Stress fracture in my left tibia. Couldn't run for 3 months. When I came back, I was so scared of getting hurt again that I had to relearn everything. How to listen to my body, how to train smart instead of just hard. That's when I really started improving. We picked up the pace slightly. My breathing was controlled, rhythmic. 6 months ago, this pace would have had me gasping. When I saw you that first day, running like you were fighting a war with the ground, I recognized something. You weren't just physically inefficient, you were mentally disconnected from your own body, just like I had been. So you decided to fix me. I decided to show you what I wished someone had shown me. That running doesn't have to be a battle. It can be a conversation between your mind and your body. As spring progressed, my improvement continued. I wasn't just getting faster, I was getting smarter about racing. I learned when to move, when to wait, how to read other runners' body language. Coach Miller taught me to think of races as chess matches played at high speed. At the conference championships in May, I was seated 4th in the 800 meters and 6th in the 1600. A year ago, I wouldn't have even qualified for these races. Now I was considered a threat to place in the top 3. The night before championships, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying race scenarios in my head, analyzing my competition, second-guessing my training. At 11 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Coach Miller. Stop thinking. Start trusting. That simple message shifted something in my mind. For months, I'd been learning to trust my body. Now I needed to trust my preparation, trust the process, trust that all those Saturday mornings had built something real and lasting. The 1600 was my first event. As I warmed up, I felt different than I ever had before a race. Calm, ready, not confident in an arrogant way, but confident in my preparation. I knew exactly what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. The race unfolded perfectly. I settled into 4th place through the first 800, moved to 3rd with 600 to go, and held my my position through a brutal third lap. With 300 meters remaining, the pace slowed slightly as everyone prepared for their finishing kicks. This was the moment Coach and I had talked about countless times. In championship races, he'd said, "It's not about who's the fastest, it's about who makes the smartest move at the right time." With 250 meters to go, I made my move. Not a desperate surge, but a smooth acceleration that caught the field off guard. I moved from third to first in the span of 50 meters, opening up a small gap as we entered the final turn. The last 200 meters felt like they lasted forever and were over in an instant. I could hear the crowd, could sense the other runners closing behind me, but I stayed focused on my form, on the rhythm Coach had taught me. Cross the line first, then celebrate. I won by 3 seconds. Not close, not a photo finish, but a clear, decisive victory. As I crossed the line, I looked immediately to Coach Miller. He was standing by himself near the fence, same position as always. This time, though, he was smiling broadly and nodding like he'd just watched something he'd been waiting to see for years. The aftermath was a blur of congratulations, interviews, and phone calls. College coaches who had never heard of me were suddenly interested. My teammates were treating me like I'd always been the star of the team. My parents were crying happy tears in the stands. But the moment that mattered most came an hour later, when the chaos had died down and I found Coach Miller sitting alone in the empty bleachers. "Thank you," I said, sitting down beside him. "For what? You did all the work. For seeing something I couldn't see. For caring enough to show up every Saturday morning. For not giving up on me when everyone else had written me off." He was quiet for a long moment. "Jackson, I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to remember it. What happened here today, what you accomplished this season, that wasn't me fixing you. That was you learning to be yourself. I don't understand. You were always capable of running like this. The speed, the intelligence, the toughness. It was all there from the beginning. We just had to clear away the interference, the bad habits, the fear. We had to help you remember how to listen to your own body instead of fighting it." He stood up and shouldered his bag. "You're going to have opportunities now. College scholarships, maybe even beyond that. But whatever you do, don't forget this lesson. Trust your instincts. Listen to your body. And when someone gives you advice, even someone you love and respect, ask yourself if it makes sense for you." 3 months later, I signed with State University on a partial scholarship. It wasn't a full ride, but it was enough to make college affordable and give me the chance to keep developing as a runner. My dad drove me to campus for freshman orientation. As we unloaded my stuff in the dorm, he handed me a small wrapped package. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside was a framed photo from the conference championship race, the moment I crossed the finish line with my arms raised. But Dad had written something at the bottom of the frame. "To Jackson, for teaching me that the best way to help someone you love is sometimes to get out of their way." I hugged him, both of us getting a little emotional. "Dad, you didn't need to get out of the way. You just needed to trust that I could find my own way." College running was a different world entirely. The training was more intense, the competition fiercer, the expectations higher. But the foundation Coach Miller had built with me held strong. I knew how to listen to my body, how to adapt when something wasn't working, how to trust my instincts even when coaches suggested different approaches. My sophomore year, I qualified for the NCOA championships in the 1500 meters. I didn't win, finished 7th overall, but making it to that level felt like validation of everything Coach Miller had taught me about potential and perseverance. After college, I went to graduate school for physical therapy, partly inspired by my own experience of overcoming poor movement patterns. I specialized in sports medicine, working with athletes who were struggling with chronic injuries or performance plateaus. It's incredible how often I see the same pattern that defined my early running career. Talented athletes whose problems stem not from lack of ability, but from fighting against their own natural movement patterns. A pitcher whose shoulder hurts because someone taught him to throw properly instead of naturally. A swimmer whose stroke looks textbook perfect but feels terrible and gets slower every year. My approach with these athletes is directly borrowed from Coach Miller's playbook. Strip away the complicated technical instruction. Get them moving naturally. Help them rediscover the conversation between mind and body that gets disrupted when we overthink movement. Last year, I was working with a high school basketball player named Marcus, who reminded me of myself at 16. Incredibly athletic, clearly talented, but somehow always a step behind during games. His AAU coach had spent 2 years trying to fix his shooting form, turning a natural scorer into someone who second-guessed every shot. Our first session, I had Marcus shoot from different spots on the court, but I turned off the lights. "Just shoot by feel," I said. "Don't think about form or technique. Just put the ball in the basket." In the dark, his natural shooting motion returned. Smooth, confident, effective. When I turned the lights back on, he looked at me with the same expression I probably had that first morning when Coach Miller had me run barefoot. "That felt right," Marcus said. "That's because it was right. For you. Let's figure out how to keep that feeling when everyone's watching and the pressure's on." Working with Marcus and dozens of other athletes has taught me that Coach Miller's gift wasn't just technical knowledge. It was the wisdom to know when to teach and when to simply remove obstacles, when to add instruction and when to subtract interference. 6 months ago, I got a call that Coach Miller had passed away suddenly. Heart attack at age 67. I drove back to my hometown for the funeral, not sure what to expect. Would anyone else remember those Saturday morning sessions? Would they understand what he'd meant to me? The funeral home was packed. Former athletes from 4 decades of coaching, parents whose kids he'd mentored, colleagues who'd learned from his approach. I listened to story after story of individual attention, of athletes whose careers and lives had been changed by Coach's willingness to see potential where others saw problems. When it was my turn to speak, speak, I told the story of those Saturday mornings. But I also talked about something else, how Coach Miller's influence had rippled outward through my career, affecting every athlete I'd worked with since. Coach Miller taught me that the smallest interventions can have the biggest impact, I said. Not grand gestures or dramatic speeches, but simple corrections applied consistently over time. He showed me that sometimes the most profound thing you can do for someone is help them stop fighting themselves. After the service, I drove to the old high school track. It was late afternoon, golden hour, the same time of day when Coach and I used to finish our Saturday sessions. The track looked exactly the same rubberized surface, same lane lines, same cone at the 200-meter mark where I'd first learned to run properly. I took off my dress shoes and ran one lap barefoot, just like that first morning 10 years earlier. My feet remembered the feeling, the way the surface pushed back, the natural rhythm that emerged when I stopped trying to control every step. As I finished the lap, I noticed a kid sitting in the bleachers watching me. Maybe 15 or 16 years old, wearing track clothes but with the defeated posture I recognized from my own teenage years. "You run for the school team?" I asked as I walked over. He nodded. "JV. I'm not very good though. Coach says I might not make varsity next year." "What's your event?" "Distance. 800, 1600. But I'm always last or close to it." I sat down beside him. "What does your form look like when you run?" He shrugged. "I don't know. Coach says I need to work harder, run more miles. But I already run 6 days a week and I'm not getting any faster." Something in his voice, the frustration, the confusion, the quiet desperation took me right back to my own 16-year-old self. I thought about Coach Miller, about Saturday mornings, about the power of someone taking time to really see you. "What's your name?" I asked. Tyler. "Tyler, I'm Jackson. I used to run for this team, actually. Can I ask you something? Would you be interested in meeting here sometime, maybe Saturday morning, and working on some things? I think I might be able to help." His eyes lit up with the same hope I'd felt when Coach Miller first offered to work with me. "Really? You'd do that?" "Absolutely. But I have one condition." "What?" "Bring running shoes you can take off. We're gonna start with some barefoot work." As Tyler nodded eagerly and we exchanged phone numbers, I felt something click into place, the circle completing itself. Coach Miller's influence flowing forward through me to another kid who just needed someone to show him how to stop fighting himself. Walking back to my car, I pulled out my phone and sent Tyler a text. "Stop thinking. Start trusting. See you Saturday at 9 a.m. It was the same message Coach Miller had sent me the night before my championship race. The same wisdom that had changed everything for me. And now maybe it would change everything for Tyler too. That's the thing about the smallest gestures. They don't stay small. They grow, they spread, they multiply across time and through relationships we can't even imagine. Coach Miller spent a few Saturday mornings helping one struggling kid learn to run properly. But that investment has now touched dozens of athletes through my work, and will touch dozens more through Tyler and through whoever Tyler goes on to help someday. The smallest thing your coach did that changed your life forever. He showed up, he paid attention, he saw past the surface struggle to the potential underneath, and he took the time to clear away the interference between me and my own natural ability. 10 years later, I'm still learning to apply that lesson. In my work, in my relationships, in how I approach challenges. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not add more effort or instruction or complexity. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is figure out what's in the way of someone's natural ability and then get it out of the way. Coach Miller never made it to the Olympics, never broke any records that I know of, but he changed lives, one athlete at a time, one Saturday morning at a time, and now standing on that same track where it all started, I understand that this might be the most important kind of success there is, the kind that keeps multiplying long after you're gone.